Ladies and gentlemen, please be in your most comfortable seats. Please find for an area with strong internet connectivity. Welcome to the last topic of our webinar series. A moment from now, we will start our webinar proper. To officially commence this webinar, may we ask for your silence as we put ourselves in the presence of our Almighty Creator. This will be followed by the national anthem, Rion 12 hymn, Jensen hymn, and RMMC hymn to be played on air.
Amang nasa langit, papuri sa iyong ngalan mo'y itataas, kalooban mo ang hari, dito sa lupa at sa langit. Salamat, Panginoon, sa iyong kabutihan, sa pagligtas sa amin, sa apoy ng kasalanan. Patawarin mo kami sa aming mga kamalian. At nang maging karapat-dapat kami sa bigyan mo kami ng sapat na biyaya mula sa lupa at sa dagat, mula sa timog at kanluran, hilaga at silangan. Ito'y aming dasal sa iyong may kapal. Ama nasa langit, papuri, papuri sa iyo. Bayang magiliw pero sa silanganan, alab ng puso sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuwid ka ng magiting, sa manlulupi di ka pasisi. Sa dagat at bulok, sa simoy at sa langit bumaga, maninag ang tula at awit sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang isang ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagdidinig, ang bituing na tarang niyang kaya pang may magdidilig. Lupa ng araw ng walay kasinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang iligaya naman may pag-api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Hinubog mo kami mula sa kawalan, binigyan mo ng buhay at ng iba't ibang dayuhan. Ngunit sa taglay mong lakas, hindi patatalo kanino man. Mga Muslim, mga Kristiyano, at mga iba pang tribo, kami nagkakaisa sa pag-angat ng ngalan mo. Lubot namang iaalay, pumailan lang sa paggabay. Patuloy kang bigyang puri, kami sa'yo'y nawiwili. Mabuhay ka, Reyong Diyos. Malawak masagana ang iyong lupain, pati buong bansa'y umaasa sa iyong mahahain. Sa pagsikat ng araw, kay ganda ng iyong tanawin, pinagpala ng may kapal, mabuhay ka, Sok Sargent. Ako, ikaw, tayo, tungo sa kaunlaran, talino at lakas, ihahandog sa bayan. Mga Muslim, mga Kristiyano, at mga iba pang tribo, kami nagkakaisa sa pag-angat ng ngalan mo. Dugot naman iaalay, pumailan lang sa paggabay. Patuloy kang bigyang puri, kami sa'yo'y nawiwili. Mabuhay ka, Reyong Diyos.
Ating pagdiwang ng buong galang, Sirena Paulino Santos. Kanyang talino, lakas at buhay, dito niya ibinuhos. Upang lahat ng nanihirahan, panawin walay masisiyahan. Sa ating lungsod na kung tawagin ay General Santos City. Magaliw tayo sa liwasan ay magsaya, maraming tao. Mula pangga sa umaga sa bukid, mga bulong ay nakikita sa taas nila. Patulungan siya ng umulat dito sa timog Cotabato. Ay ilang ng mga tanong ay dapat mga bukirin. Nalagin niya at mga saging, ngayon lahat ay may unawan. Kristiyano Muslim, tibuli aklaan, sa ating lungsod na kung tawagin ay General Santos City. One and all RMMC forever. Don't just be, we will strive all together. For the truth and the right we'll stand, and be of service to our land. All in one, dear RMMC always, the true haven of our most valued states. Thy ideas be our guiding star. Thy good name will never mar. Onward march, never fail in its duty. Make a name for our school and our country. And every strife we will always remember. Our dear RMMC forever.
Magandang RMMC po sa ating lahat and welcome to the last topic episode of our webinar series. Of course, with the theme, Modifying Teaching Strategies for Virtual Learning, Fitting Education in New Normal. Amidst the pandemic, italaga namang tuloy na tuloy pa rin ang ating virtual learning and of course, alam kong excited na ang lahat, especially ang ating mga future educators na talaga namang jam-pack ang mga baon bago pa man sila isalang into the real world of teaching. Live po tayo ngayon sa YouTube and of course, gusto ho nating batiin ang ating mga kaibigan from RMMC-MI. Of course, they are headed by Ma'am Conces Dayan Fajartin, and to our future educators from the RMMC Jensen, headed by Dr. Annalisa T. Amada. Magandang umaga ho sa ating lahat. This day, we will have our last topic, which is the teaching strategies in the new normal setup. And to formally welcome us all, we have here Sir Christian J. Fajartin for his words of welcome. Let's give him a virtual round of applause, please.
To our very energetic and loving College Dean, Ma'am Annalisa Amada, and to the Acting Program Director of the College of Teacher Education of RMMC Marbel Incorporated, Ma'am Conces Dayan Fajartin, to our speaker, Ma'am Ellen Joy Farala, and to you, practice teachers, good morning and welcome to our webinar for this morning. I would like to thank you all for responding positively to this webinar through the help of our very supportive heads, Ma'am Amada and Ma'am Fajartin. Nowadays, it is very hard to know what teaching strategies best suit the new normal. What individual strategy can we use to improve student learning and to broaden the horizon of knowledge that we want to impart with our students? Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we are forced to shift our teaching massively in a way we learn and connect to others. Online learning is the new normal for us. And to reflect on this change, we teachers also change the way we teach so that the education system can also keep up to this change. We as teachers need to strategize. That's why it is very important to know what strategies can we best use in the new normal setup. We must plan and organize thoughtfully and carefully our lesson, clarify the norms and opportunities our students are expecting, build stronger, if strong already, teacher-student interaction and relationship. And lastly, we must use technology wisely. We teach now with the use of technology. That is why it is very important to know what strategy is best in today's educational system. Now, without further ado, I once again welcome you all in this webinar. Thank you and God bless us all.
At this juncture, to start our meaningful day, we have here Ma'am Joy Marie Gulada to introduce our resource speaker.
A pleasant morning to everyone. My courtesy to the college administration headed by our college president, Dr. Christopher Franz Marie R. Miliado, to our Dean of the College of Teacher Education, Dr. Annalisa T. Amada, to the Acting Program Director of RMMC Marbel, Ma'am Conces Dayan Fajartin, to the faculty and staff of the College of Teacher Education, and of course to our future educators. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce to you our esteemed resource speaker for this webinar. She is a native of Cabacan, Cotabato, and has finished her elementary at President Quirino Central School, graduated as valedictorian. Her secondary at President Quirino National High School, and still the class valedictorian. She finished her bachelor's degree at University of Southern Mindanao with a degree in Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in General Science, and graduated as cum laude. She continued her pursuit to education and earned her Master's of Arts in Education, major in Educational Management with a minor in Biology in the year 2007. Currently, she is taking her Doctor of Philosophy in Education in Notre Dame of the Diangas University. Above all her good educational background, she still manages her time and be affiliated to various organizations. In fact, she is a member of some local and international organizations like the International Association of Scholarly Publishers, Editors and Reviewers, Asian Society of Teachers for Research, and International Education Circle. Meanwhile, to ensure that she responds to the changing time and work standards, she is also active in attending various seminars and trainings, and just this very recent attended the National Research Expo 2022, last January 28 to 29, 2022. Presently, she is working as an assistant professor at the College of Education of the University of Southern Mindanao. Future educators, please help me welcome our highly esteemed resource speaker, Ma'am Ellen Joy M. Farala.
Good morning. Um, Sorry, I was a little bit late, but I have already sent the recorded video presentation of today's lecture on flexible teaching strategies in the new normal. Thank you for your invitation, RMMC. Good morning, everyone. My respect to the heads of Ramon Magsaysay Memorial Colleges, and also to Ma'am Dayan Fahartin. Thank you for your invitation to be with you this day and share with you my knowledge on the different teaching strategies and how are these strategies would be fitted with our new normal type of education this time. So despite of pandemic, we have to continue what we teach. We have to continue uh, the learning that our students should get. Moreover, we just need to fit. We need to be flexible according to the needs of the time. So this morning, I'm going to share with you actually, these are strategies that I believe you already know. I'll just share with you how are these strategies could be used to fit our new normal education for us to become flexible in the delivery of our teaching and flexible in the assessment of the learning process of our students. So I believe you will be having your internship, and I hope this would help you in the delivery of your lessons in your field of specializations. So my topic this morning are the flexible teaching strategies in the new normal. So I hope I can share this to you in 2 hours time. And let me start with asking whether you agree or disagree. So please react on these statements. It's about our 21st century learners. Okay, agree or disagree? Students entering our classroom today are much more different from those who have come before. So these are for teachers also, but I would like you to agree or disagree on this statement based on your observations. Actually, you're also called as 21st century learners. So how do you see yourselves coming or entering a classroom? Okay, so another statement, agree or disagree? If it's on the web, then it must be true. Are you that kind of a learner na kung ano yung nakita mo, Pag pindot sa Google, dire-diretso na, and you always think that that's already true. That's the truth about an issue. Okay? Next one. Learners today gather information faster than any other generation. Agree or disagree? So, siguro naman naririnig niyo yung mga parents niyo, bakit ang bilis niyong makahanap ng info? Diba? Because you are in that generation Z, wherein everything is dependent on technology. So, I don't know how many of you still consult the dictionary, yung printed one, yung malalaki, the dictionary or the encyclopedia. Who among you here still reads the encyclopedia? Okay, another statement. Agree or disagree? The quality of learning is measured on how much learning is absorbed and translated into skills. Okay, the statement is how much, gaano karami. So, agree or disagree. Okay? Then, okay. And for the last statement, agree or disagree? The quality of learning is measured on how well learning is absorbed and translated into skills. Kung kanina, the question is how much. This time, the question is how well. Okay? Gaano ba kalalim? Or gaano ba kaganda, gaano ba ka-meaningful yung learning na naa-absorb at na-translate ng ating mga learners into skills. So these characteristics or these statements are all pertaining to our 21st century learners. Actually, you're part of this. You're part of the 21st century learners. So ang tanong ngayon is, how are you going to handle? How are we going to fit in our strategies so that we can teach them more? Okay, so how are we going to fit in, okay, our strategies so that it could be more effective? Kasi yun naman talaga yung ating pinaka-goal, that we become effective teachers. We become efficient teachers in teaching. Okay, so higher education learning strategies for the new normal. There are some tips kung paano natin gagawin itong mga ito. So how do we continue teaching learning process amidst this pandemic? So firstly, planning is everything. This is the first step, right? So here are a few higher education learning strategies that teachers can use to increase learning engagement online. Una, ensure that you're always organized and have a plan laid out. Sabi nga nila, do not go into a battle unprepared. So you really have to plan. What am I going to do? This is my topic. How am I going to deliver this to my students? Ano ba yung strategy na gagawin ko? Ano ba yung mga activities na gagawin nila so that the learning would be maximized? That's always our goal, diba? Maximizing the learning of our students. And today, synchronous and asynchronous learning both have their place. So you could think about mixing things up to ensure that students are engaged with their online lessons. So we can give them synchronous activities and we can also give them offline activities. But still, they are in line with our topics. Okay, number 3, Break up your lessons into digestible pieces so that your students' attention spans to waver. Remember, 2 hours lecture would be boring for students, especially if it's online and they're allowed to mute their microphone and close their cameras. Diba? We do not know what they're doing in there. But what we're going to do is we digest the pieces of activities that we give so that still we can maximize the learning. Second, we lead by example. Okay? Of course, you have to present yourself well. Kahit na online learning yan, at least maayos po yung ating itsura. So, look into the camera when you present and don't multitask while you're presenting. So that your students would also think na, si ma'am nga nakafocus. Ako pa kaya? Si ma'am nga prepared. Ako pa kaya? And if your students have suddenly had to go from face-to-face lessons to online learning, you don't want them to think of online as potentially lesser than a physical class. Kumbaga, they should think of, we're having online learning, we're having blended learning, It's the same. The learning that we get is just the same before we had our face-to-face lessons. And at home, when they're at home, there are more distractions. Okay, so this means that you as the teacher need to lead by example and set expectations. Okay, next we have think outside the box. So there are other ways to teach online that go way beyond delivering a live stream lecture or converting documents into a PDF. When we just contact our class and then say, class, I have uploaded your new lesson in our Moodle. Kindly access that and answer the questions in there. Still, our students need to digest. They need us to process the information, to explain further what is in there. Okay, so technology today allows us to connect in so many different ways. We can have forum. Okay, personally, I'm using FB group. So doon po kami nagpapalitan ng aming question and answer. So I only use the messenger, the group chat for announcements. And when it comes to their submission of activities, I make links with my Google Drive. And then they are also submitting their requirements to our virtual learning environment. We also have that learning Moodle. And aside from that, we do the discussion, we do the open forums online, or it could be done, okay, we also do it using our FB group. So you could also start with encouraging your students to take part in online polls or real-time online knowledge tests. So we have a lot of online quizzes available just to add para bang add spice to your lesson. That while we are having our lesson, we can also have short quizzes or we can also have short activities para lang hindi maging masyadong monotonous yung ating lecture or yung ating activities during our time. So the longer we stay in the screen, the longer we talk, it's becoming boring for our students. So we really have to strategize. So you can include audio files or videos as part of your lessons also. Okay? And encourage social interaction among your students. So switching to an online learning environment can be tough for some students, lalo na pag medyo mahina ang kanilang mga signals. But if teachers can encourage social interaction, the same as students can expect when in physical proximity to their classmates, then this could help them keep engaged. So instead of lagging on and launching straight into the day's lesson, magkaroon din kayo ng kumustahan kahit 5 minutes lang. Pero wag naman lahat, wag namang puro kumustahan na lang ang mangyayari. So at least kumustahin mo lang din, how are you today? Okay, are you doing good today? Or kumusta yung signal? Kumusta yung ano? Diba? Kasi yung there are instances kasi that kailangan din nating kumustahin. Wag lang na, okay, good morning class, our lesson for today is about blah, 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 blah. Tapos parang mga estudyante mo, hindi mo naman lang tinitingnan kung nakikinig pa ba or are they feeling well today? Kasi diba, usong-uso yung sakit. So, we really have to be considerate also because hindi rin natin alam na hindi na rin pala nila na-absorb yung ating pinag-uusapan because they're not feeling okay. So you can also check in within the individual's level or just like in the classroom environment. Okay, so here are teaching strategies that can be helpful in the new normal. Actually, these are common strategies, pero sinali ko pa rin because they are commonly used. Okay, we still use them, kaya lang kailangan lang natin silang lagyan ng twist. Okay, so the first one is direct or expositive instructional approach. So this is what we use when we aim for teaching the basic skills and procedural knowledge. So if you have some laboratory subjects, if you have some subjects na kailangan na matutunan muna nila yung basic skills. So we make use of direct expositive or this is what we call the straightforward method. Okay. So this is also done in a step-by-step manner. And this is the most common way of teaching during online. Diba? Lecture method. Okay, makinig kayo kasi magli-lecture ako. So that's direct, expositive. So what are its instructional characteristics? Of course, dahil nga direct expositive siya, it's a teacher-directed teaching strategy. The teaching of skill is the emphasis. Like for example, your subject is elementary mathematics. Okay, class, our lesson for today is addition. Okay, who can add? Diba? So, paano natin lalagyan ng twist itong lecture method natin? Pwede nating mag-inculcate ng iba't ibang activities. Okay, who among you there can show me their spoons and fork? This is for elementary. Okay, kindly get spoons and fork. Okay, now, how many spoons do you have? How many fork do you have? Kindly count. So, how many spoons? There are 3. How many fork? There are 5. And then, kindly count them all. So, di ba? We just don't teach the theory. We just don't teach by figure, but we teach them with practical skills. We teach them depending on the objects that they see in their homes. So, hindi lang basta numbers. We don't deal with numbers. But most importantly, we should deal with how they should understood the concepts that we teach. Okay, though this is used, okay, in a step-by-step fashion, wherein lesson objectives include easily observable behaviors that can be measured accurately, and this is also a form of learning imitation in behavioral manner. So that's lecture. Kahit pa sabihin natin, lecture method, gas-gas na yan, ma'am. But actually, though this is the most common, most convenient, but kailangan lang nating maglagay ng konting twists so that our students would not be bored. Our students would still be participative during our lessons. The next one is the deductive method. Yung mga common talaga ito ng mga ay mga kung educator ka, kung education graduate ka, diba? Students in education just chew this. Nginunguya na lang natin ito. So it's the deductive method. It's a still teacher dominated. So it begins with the abstract rule, the generalization, then it ends with the concrete details. So, pag sinabi natin deductive, we look at it as an inverted triangle, di ba? Inverted triangle. So, we start with the general rule and we end up with the specific examples. Like for example, okay, doon pa rin tayo, math pa rin tayo. Teaching fractions or adding fractions with the same denominators. So how are we going to teach them using the deductive method? So when you are teaching deductive method, teaching the topic, addition of fractions with the same denominator, we start with the general rule. So what's the general rule? In adding fractions with the same denominators, just add the numerator and copy the denominator. That's the general rule. Okay, class, here are some examples. So we end up with specific examples. That's the deductive method. On the other hand, we have this third method, which is the inductive method. Paano naman natin siya babaliktarin? So the inductive method starts with examples and ends with the general concept. So this is now the triangle. Hindi na siya inverted pyramid. So it's a process of arriving at a given generalization. Okay, balikan natin si addition of fraction using addition of fraction with the same denominator. Okay, as a teacher, if this is your topic, you start giving them examples. Okay? Pwede naman tayo, di ba, pag may Google Classroom tayo, nag-Google Meet tayo, we have the Jamboard. Okay, meron naman tayong examples. Pwede din naman nating i-present through the slides in our PowerPoint presentations. So we start with examples and then we let our students or we let our learners identify what's common among them. Okay? So what can you observe? What happened to the fractions in the slides? So some would say, ma'am, they are added. The numerators are added. So how about the denominators? They are just the same. So with these examples, who can make a rule in adding fractions with the same denominators? So from there, from the examples, our students would start generating ideas. They would start making principles, okay, that they can say that in adding fractions with the same denominators, the numerators are added and the denominators are just copied or retained. So that's the inductive method. Okay? Meron lang po tayong 7. Namili lang ako ng 7, which I think would be most appropriate to use during this time. Okay, so that's inductive. The fourth one is the demonstration method. So we do not get away with demonstration method. Though online siya, but still that is possible. Okay, because diba, we can integrate videos in our lessons. We can insert videos in our lessons. We can let our students either we do the recording or we get a recorded one in the internet, in YouTube. Okay, so the fourth one is demonstration method. So it's an imitative method according to Garcia, Acero, and Castro. Again, it's teacher dominated. And what's the purpose of the teacher there? So it is to show how to operate, to manipulate equipment while the class observes. Diba? Mahirap siyang gawin online kasi masyadong limitado yung ating camera. Pero kung meron ka namang, diba, yung video mo siya, ginawa mo na yung video ahead of time, then i-insert mo na lang during your class. That could be possible. So, what are the steps on the demonstration method? So, we start with purposing. Ano ba yung purpose natin of doing the demonstration method? Anong skill ba yung ating ituturo? Okay? Then the second one, we plan out. What skill should they get? Do they need assistance? So, what could be the considerations that we have to do in doing this demonstration method? And then the third one, then we do the demonstration by the teacher or the student, and then we execute or the actual carrying out of the plans made, and then we evaluate. Nakuha ba nila yung ating skill na gusto nilang matutunan? Lalong-lalo na ito sa mga subjects na may mga laboratory. Biology, chemistry, physics. Di ba nai-imagine niyo paano ko ituturo itong laboratory nila? Pero kung may mga activities naman, if there are activities wherein the materials are just locally available, then we may do demonstration method. Of course, we send them the video how to do it, we send them the procedure, and then there is an demonstration there kung paano nila gagawin, and then they have to send back, baga meron silang return demo na tinatawag, na sila na mismo yung gagawa, sila na mismo yung magpe-perform nung skill na kailangan nilang matutunan. Okay, so that's the purpose of having or using demonstration teaching in the new norm. Okay. The fifth one is on cooperative teaching strategies. So, remember, our role today is not the fountain of knowledge, but facilitators of learning. So, it makes use of classroom organization where students work in groups or teams to help each other learn. So, there are a lot of cooperative teaching strategies that we know, di ba? But I will just mention some. So, it's a group helping each other learn, but keeping each individual members accountable for his or her learning. So, though we give them the activities by group, but each member is accountable for his or her learning. Okay? So, a cooperative task structure, and students work in team to tackle academic tasks. Okay? Kung meron tayong mga Zoom accounts, better. We can have them with, they can have it during the breakout rooms, pero they can also have their own GC. They have their own group chats, and then they call, they plan, and they plan how are they going to do the activity. And then it's also a reward system. Okay, the reward system are in group. So, kumbaga, ang grade ng isa ay grade ng lahat. So, ibig sabihin, kailangang magtulungan silang lahat. So, here are some examples. So, the next strategy is the flipped classroom strategy. This is one of the newest strategy introduced to us in around 2012. So, flipped classroom is a pedagogical approach in which direct instruction moves from the group learning space, so from the classroom that we used to have our lessons, to the individual learning space of the students or their individual learning space at home. And the resulting group space, yung mga dapat dinidiscuss natin sa classroom is transformed into dynamic interactive learning environment where the educator guides the students as they apply concepts and engage creatively in the subject matter. So from the word flip, binaliktad natin. Kumbaga, yung mga activities na supposedly gagawin natin sa classroom, like yung discussions natin, ay binibigay na natin ahead of time sa ating mga estudyante. At yung assignments, yung homeworks na dapat na gagawin nila inside their homes when they go home, when they go to their houses, they will do that, they will discuss it during our class time. So, na-imagine nyo ba kung paano ginagawa si Flip? So, in short, you give in advance your lessons. Like for example, magtuturo ako bukas. Dapat kahapon pa nabigay ko na yung lesson ko para bukas. So that my students would have enough time to watch our topic, our lesson. Then I'll give them enough time to watch. I'll give them activities. I'll give them guide questions to answer, wherein they cannot answer those questions unless they watch the lesson. Intindihin nila yung lesson. And in Flip, they can stop, they can pause, and they can replay you. In short, magre-record ka ng iyong discussion. And then, yung guide questions that will serve as an activity for our students will be discussed during our class times. That is how flipped classroom strategy is being used. And actually, studies have proven that students prefer flipped. Students' academic performance increased by the use of flipped classroom strategy. I myself had one thesis advisee wherein he conducted, he used the experimental and control group grade 3 pupils ang kanyang respondents. So, ginamitan niya ng flipped classroom strategy, yung kanyang experimental group, and there was a significant increase on the scores of the pupils who learned using flip than using the traditional method. So, those are studies that we can see and that can support how flipped classroom strategy is helping our learners to learn. So there are 4 pillars of flip. Meron pong ibig sabihin itong FLIP natin na ito. Hindi lang basta binaliktad na classroom. Okay, so flip F means flexible learning environment. So when you eliminate traditional lecture, you also lose the static rows of sitting in favor of flexible arrangements. Diba? Noon, our students are arranged in rows, in columns, but with cooperative learning in mind, with flipped classroom, and we wanted them to be more flexible seating arrangement were also introduced. So it could be a semicircle, it could be circular in manner. Di ba yung iba nga, nakaano lang, basta malinis lang yung floor, nakasalampak yung mga bata noon, lalo na pag face-to-face. So those are part of our strategies. Diba? Part yun siya ng ating task as teachers that in learning, hindi kailangang nakaupo, hindi kailangang di ba yung mga traditional natin na way of learning noon na, dapat, yung city rec, dapat wala masyadong gumagalaw, makinig sa lecture. So, hindi na po yan, hindi na effective yan ngayon. So, with flip, furniture should be modular and allow for a variety of group of individual works. And likewise, the timing of lessons needs to be flexible to allow for students to fully explore a topic and understand it at their own pace. So, pwede silang mag-move, pwede silang mag-interact. This is with, of course, face-to-face arrangement later on. But for now, so let's give them activities that are good for individual or pwedeng body or partner or pwedeng tatlo sila. Kasi mahirap din po yung, di ba, hindi na rin effective yung 7 and up na grouping. At least nasa tatlo, nasa apat. Maximum 5. Para sigurado na merong ginagawa ang bawat isa. Hindi yung audience lang yung iba. The next one is the learning culture. So instead of traditional teacher-centric learning, the flipped classroom puts students at the center of the lesson. Sorry for my background na dog. Okay? So, we put our students at the center of our lesson. Sila yung ating iniisip when we do the recording, when we deliver our lesson. It's not ourselves. It's our students. Are they going to learn from me? So students guide the pace and style of learning, and instructors play the role of the guide on the side. So we just do the scaffolding. Sabi nga ni Vygotsky, di ba? You are the guide on their side because you are the more knowledgeable other. So this means that we just facilitate. Okay, so instructors will help students through an experiment or guide them through a practice set when they need assistance applying new information. Like for example, when they are new to a topic, so we can be facilitators, we can be the guides, and then eventually we gradually withdraw the support until such time na papabayaan na natin na yung ating mga estudyante na ang gagawa. One example is the lesson planning. Diba? We guide them, we present Bloom's taxonomy, we present Krathwohl's taxonomy of objectives. How are they going to make? How are they going to do the objectives? And then, what are the topics? And then, what different strategies can they use? What different activities can they employ when writing their lesson plans? And then we check. And then after that, we let them do another set of lesson plan. And then we let them have their demonstration teaching. Then after that, we do feedbacking for their improvement. Then that's the role of the teacher. We are facilitating our students to learn. So, the letter I, intentional content. So instructors who embrace the flipped learning model are always on the lookout for ways to maximize their classroom time so that students are actively engaged in learning and hands-on practice. And This approach requires prioritizing lessons that work in such a model and figuring out ways to encourage learners to work independently. So that's intentional content. Ano ba yung aking ituturo? So paano ko ba siya gagawin ng tama? Paano ko ba gagawin na mas effective? And lastly, the letter P stands for professional educator. So this means that when using flipped classroom strategy, teachers should constantly monitor their students in order to identify who needs help, okay, with what, and why do students need that help, okay? Also, teachers should be responsible and flexible and must understand that this highly active style of teaching takes great pedagogical skill. Bakit? Bakit kailangan kaya ito? Because we really need to record our lessons ahead of time. Okay? We have to plan well our lessons, and we give our lessons in advance so that our students can learn it in advance and they can answer the activities we give during our class time. So despite being less visible, teachers need to be at the top of the game to nurture students in a flipped classroom. Ikaw ang nakakaalam. Kasi ikaw, in the first place, ikaw ang nagplano. But we have to remember na hindi po lahat ng topics natin ay kailangan natin gamitin itong si Flip. Remember that when we teach, we can use 2 to 3 strategies in one topic, but it doesn't mean na kung demonstration method ka nag-start, ganun na rin up to the end of the grading period or the semester. So, hindi rin po, there are only topics that can be flipped. Diba? We can deliver it using the flipped classroom strategy. So the question is, why should you flip your classroom? Ano ba yung advantages ng flipping our lesson or flipping our classroom? So the concept of flipped classroom was first brought up by Jonathan Bergman and Aaron Sams, who were both high school chemistry teachers. So it's actually coming from their book, Flip Your Classroom, and reach every student in every class every day. Di ba? Napakaganda ng title. Napakaganda ng motive ng strategy na ito. So here are some advantages of flipping our classroom. Kumbaga, these have been proven to be true. So flipping speaks the language of today's students. Why? Because when we give in advance the topics that we have recorded, the discussions that we have recorded, they can learn at their own pace. They can learn during nighttime, where some of the students have been nocturnal these days. Diba? They can play, they can replay us, they can pause us. Unlike with the traditional lecture method or the traditional online or synchronous method that we do, di ba? Pag hindi lang nakinig ng 2 minutes yung student or ikaw hindi ka nakinig, nawala yung iyong attention doon sa dinidiscuss, minsan nawawala ka sa, ay, ano na nga ba yung pinag-uusapan? Parang ganon. So, with flipped classroom, dahil naka-record na yung discussion ng teacher, so madali lang para sa estudyante na balikan. Madali lang i-download at i-save at babalikan. And this resulted to a more engaged na mga estudyante pag gumagamit yung teacher ng flip na strategy. Okay? So, flipping also helps struggling students kasi they have the chance to replay. They have the chance na ulit-ulitin yung video na sinend mo hanggang sa maintindihan nila. And flipping helps students of all abilities to excel. And also, ito na yung sinasabi ko, flipping allows students to pause and replay their teacher. So why should you flip your classroom? Again, these are the reasons. Flipping increases student-teacher interaction kasi instead na sa bahay ginagawa ang assignment, and there are some parents who really help in doing the assignment of their children. They do the discussion, they do the processing of information during the class time. Hindi na siya nagiging teacher-led or hindi na siya nagiging teacher-dominated. Kumbaga, meron ng discussion. Si teacher nandun na lang magfa-facilitate na lang. It's the students who now discusses what they have learned from the lesson. Okay? And flipping increases student-to-student interaction, which is good, di ba? Kasi sila na mismo nag-uusap. And also, it allows for real differentiation. Okay? So, they can look at one topic in different perspectives. They can share their own perspectives. And with that perspectives, the whole class learns from those different ideas given by the students. Also, flipping changes classroom management. It changes how we manage classroom. Kasi dati-dati, makinig kayo sa akin, I'll do the discussion. In flip classroom, it's the teacher who just gives the guide, and his role is a guide on the side, and it's the students who process the information. So in this case, mas malalim yung nakukuhang learning ng mga estudyante. Okay? Flipping changes also the way we talk to parents. Why? Because we also have to orient the parents that you really have to monitor, they really have to monitor their children if they are doing it right. Because since we are sending it in advance, so it's also the responsibility to monitor their children at home. And also flipping educate parents. Bakit? They can watch together. Diba? Parents and children can watch together, and the lessons could be part of their bonding. Could be kumbaga, di ba, magiging bonding na, tama pala yan, ganun pala yun. So there are parents who are willing to learn from the lessons of their children. Okay? So there are 6-step guides for flipping your classroom. Number 1, unang-una talaga, you really have to plan. Ano ba yung mga lessons ko na pwede kong i-flip? Ano ba yung mga lessons ko na gusto kong i-flip? Kasi hindi pwedeng, nagplano ka ngayon, bukas flip ka kaagad. Hindi po siya possible. Kasi 'di ba, sabi ko nga, you really have to give your lessons in advance. So the assignment na kailangan nilang gawin sa bahay ay during class time na nila i-discuss. So outline the key learning outcomes and also your lesson plan. The second one, record. So, ito na, kailangan mo nang mag-record. So, instead of teaching this lesson in person, you can make a video of your own. So, make sure it contains all the key elements you've mentioned in the classroom. Ano ba yung naiiwasan natin pag naka-record yung ating lesson? Yung tendency ng teacher na mag-segue sa topic. 'Di ba? Pag meron tayong topic, pag recorded siya, so kung ano lang yung pag-uusapan natin, yun lang. Pero pag nandun tayo sa real classroom discussion, may it be online or face-to-face, di ba maraming issues na nagpa-pop up until such time na nagkukulang yung oras, tapos hindi natin natatapos yung dapat nating tapusin sa time na yan because of those issues. So in Bergman and Sam's book, they also pointed out that you do not make a video just for the sake of making a video. Okay? Only do so when you feel these are appropriate and necessary, and it all depends on the educational goal of your lesson. So if making videos better facilitate your instructional goal, then go ahead. Diba? So not all lessons should be flipped, and basta nakapag-record, okay na yon. Hindi po ganon. So it should follow a certain purpose. Okay? Then the third one is to share. Okay, sending the video to your students. So if possible, make it engaging and clear. So ngayon, actually, we have here, if you're using Windows 365 na Office, sa PowerPoint presentation, we can record presentations na. We can do the video, and then after that, we export it na maging video siya. So, andun na kaagad, meron na tayo kaagad na discussions. So, explain that the video's content will be fully discussed in class. Okay, di ba? At least pinauna mo na yung lesson mo, na process na nila in advance. So, whatever the questions in mind that they have, they can ask it during your class time. Okay, and then the fourth one is change. Okay, so now that your students have viewed your lesson, they're prepared to actually go more in depth than ever before. So, hindi na lang yung discussion ka, makikinig sila. Then they will just say, okay, any question? None, ma'am. None, sir. So, walang interaction. Kumbaga, lesser yung kanilang pag-iisip kasi ang nangyari lang ay naging passive receiver lang sila ng information. Where in fact, pwede mo silang gawin na sila mismo ang manipulate, sila mismo ang mag-process ng information by giving them guide questions or probing questions to further or to give your lesson an in-depth aspect, okay, na mas madali nilang matutunan. And group or an effective way to discuss the topic is to separate into groups where students are given a task to perform. So we can give them group activities such as poem, a play, making a video, or etc. And then after that, you may regroup your students. So get the class back together to share the individual's group work with everyone. And then you can ask questions, you can dive deeper than ever before. So after these 6 steps, review, revise, and repeat the steps. Okay? So let's move on to this one. What do you see? So what's the difference among the 4 plants, the 4 cactuses in a pot? Okay, some of you would answer the color. Some of you would answer the amount of the stems. Okay, or the amount of plants na nandun. May makapal, merong kakaunti. And ang pinaka-dominant na pwede natin makitang difference agad-agad would be the color. So, they are of the same species of cactus, but they have different colors. So, when we look into the personalities or into the types of learners that we have in our classroom, they also look like this. Diba? They may be the same cactus, but they have different colors. They have different personalities. They have different abilities. So that's how we should look into our learners. So this leads us to the 7th strategy, But before that, sabi ni Tomlinson 2001, at its most basic level, differentiating instruction means shaking up what goes on in the classroom so that students have multiple options for taking in information, making sense of ideas, and expressing what they learn. In other words, a differentiated classroom provides different avenues to acquiring content, to processing or making sense of ideas, and to developing products so that each student can learn effectively. So this leads us to 7, which is the differentiated instruction. So, ang pinaka-main principle ng differentiated instruction is that one size does not fit all. So, tatanungin nyo, di ba? Is there any best method, ma'am? Is there any best strategy that you can recommend? My answer for that is wala. There is no best method or best strategy in teaching. You can only say that you have used the best method or best strategy when you produce the product that you wanted to produce. It's the only measure that you can say that what you used, what the method or the strategy that you use is the best. Okay, so not all, according to differentiated instruction, not all of your students grasp the subject in the same way or share the same level of ability. So how can you better deliver your lessons to reach everyone in class? Diba? Differentiated instruction. So teachers who practice differentiation in classroom may, number 1, design the lessons based on students' learning styles. Remember, we have different learning styles. We have students who are kinesthetic, we have students who are auditory, and we have also students who are tactile. Or, we can also group the students by shared interests. Ano ba yung kanilang interests? Ano ba yung topics na gustong-gusto nila? Or their ability for assignments. And also, we can assess students' learning using formative assessment. So, we group them. Diba? We have groupings in classroom. We have the advanced, we have the average, and we have the struggling. Okay? Hindi na daw natin gagamitin yung slow learners na term. Okay? Pwede natin gamitin yung struggling na term para hindi rin masyadong masakit. Pero when we group our students, dapat hindi nila alam na yun ang kanilang grouping. So that there would be no development of inferiority or superiority complex in the classroom. Okay. Next, manage the classroom to create a safe and supportive environment and continually assess and adjust lesson content to meet students' needs. So, that's how a differentiated instructor, okay, a differentiated classroom should be. Yun ang dapat gagawin ng teacher. So, ano yung pinaka gist nito? The teacher should know who his learners are. Sino-sino, alamin natin. Kilalanin natin kung sino-sino yung ating mga learners. Ano yung interest nila? Ano yung gusto nila? Ano yung abilities nila? Before we do the differentiated instruction in our classes. Okay. So let's take a look at this picture. Remember that students come to our classroom with a variety of, yun nga kanina, learning styles. Personal experiences, diba? They have different personal experiences. Prior educational experiences, lalong-lalo na at they come from different schools. They also have different interests, motivators in life, and their level of readiness. Okay? So, dito tayo maglalaro. These are the characteristics of the learners that we have in the classroom. So, these are the things that we also have to consider in differentiating our instruction. Unfortunately, according to Howard Gardner, some classroom structures do not address this student diversity. In fact, the biggest mistake of past centuries in teaching has been to treat all children as if they were variants of the same individual, and thus to feel justified in teaching them all the same subjects in the same way. So, Howard Gardner, diba, is the proponent of the multiple intelligence theory na hindi na uso ngayon yung titingnan lang natin yung academic ability ng ating mga estudyante. But we also have to consider that there are other intelligences that a student may have. So, as an activity, let us take a look at the instructional strategies that we typically use in our classrooms and see how they affect our students' memory retention rates. So, let me share to you a slide. You may take a piece of paper and a pencil and then do the ranking. Okay, so among these strategies mentioned in the right side, rank the strategies from the least effective to the most effective. So, least effective from top to bottom. Try to guess the percentage of information a typical student may retain for each. Sige, so dapat merong percentage. Okay? So, I'll give you 2 minutes to do this activity. So you rank practice teaching by doing, practice by doing, should I say, demonstration, teach another, audio or visuals, discussion, reading, and lecture. Which one do you think has the least effect or the become most effective for the students to retain the information that they learn? Okay, so let us now reveal the answers. Okay, so let us now reveal which of those strategies are least effective or most effective. So the most common strategy that we use in teaching online, which is the lecture, is only 5% of what is retained to our students. Then followed by reading, that is 10%. Audio, the use of audio and visuals, 20%. Demonstration, that's 30%. Discussion, 50%. Okay, it could be done using the flipped classroom strategy. Practice by doing, okay, wherein they have to apply the skills that they have learned, the concepts that they have learned, that's 75%. And teaching others or immediate use of learning is 95%. So, teaching others is the most effective strategy. So, when we teach, we really have to ensure that our students can have the chance to teach others. Kaya nga, di ba, lumabas yung ating peer tutoring because it's not the hindi yung bata na tinututor yung mas lalong natututo. Instead, kung sino yung nagtuturo na classmate niya, na peer niya, mas lalo siyang natututo. Okay. So this is differentiating instruction, okay, or the differentiated instruction. So what is a differentiated instruction? It's a set of unique decisions that the educator makes to bring learning within the grasp of all students. So remember, this includes students who are working on grade level, below their grade level, and for those students working above their grade level. So as I have said a while ago, students can be grouped advanced, average, or struggling students. So it is a thoughtful process because you have to consider every aspect of your students or of your pupils. So differentiation is providing avenues to acquire content, process ideas, and develop them. And also, it's a means to provide multiple options for taking in and making sense of information as well. So here are the principles of differentiated classroom. Number one, all students participate in respectful work. They have their own work and they respect the output of one another. Teachers and students work together to ensure continual engagement and challenge for each learner. So the teacher coordinates the use of time, space, and activities, and flexible grouping. Okay? So hindi naman ibig sabihin na kung magkakagrupo lahat ng matatalino sa isang activity, forever na yun sila. We have to do it flexible. Diba? We have to make the grouping more flexible. As much as possible, every other activity, iba-iba yung kanilang kasamahan sa group. So which includes the whole class, the learning group, the pairs, the student-related groups, the teacher-selected groups, and random groups. So here, we can see the difference between a traditional classroom versus a differentiated classroom. Okay? So in traditional classroom, differences are acted upon when problematic. While in differentiated classroom, differences are studied as a basis for planning. So kumbaga, kung you're up with differentiated classroom instruction, you want differences because it's from the differences that you can make activities, that you can maximize the potential of your students. So, in traditional, assessment is most common at the end of learning to see who got it. Diba? Who got the perfect score? It's the way of assessment. But in differentiated classroom instruction, assessment is ongoing. So, you observe before, during, and after, and diagnostics to make instruction more responsive to learners' needs. Also, in traditional classroom instruction, a relatively narrow sense of intelligence prevails, while in differentiated classroom instruction, it is more focused on multiple forms of intelligences. And the coverage of curriculum in traditional classroom is the drive of instruction, while in differentiated, students' readiness, interest, and learning profile shapes your instruction. The way you teach, the way you give the activities, the different activities that you give is dependent on the type of learners that you have. And also, in traditional classroom, a single text prevails, while in differentiated classroom instruction, multiple materials are provided and are used. So remember that With the use of differentiated instruction, a teacher's response to learners' needs could be guided by general principles of differentiation, such as the tasks should be respectful, depending on the ability of our students. It could be flexible grouping, and it could be an ongoing assessment and adjustment. So, whatever the observations that you have made, you always adjust it. You always plan for the next time kung ano na naman ang iyong gagawin. And remember, with the use of differentiated instruction, we can make it different through the content, through the process that we use, and through the product that we asked from our students. And in differentiating this content, process, and products, it should be according to students' readiness, interests, and their learning profile. Okay, remember that there are ways to differentiate in terms of content. What is taught? What is being taught? Ano ba yung ituturo mo? Okay? And the process, how is it taught? Paano mo ba siya ituturo? Pwedeng pare-pareho yung paraan, pare-pareho yung topic, iisang topic, pare-pareho yung paraan mo ng pagtuturo, pero pagdating sa product, paano mo i-assess ang iba't ibang grupo sa iyong klase? Paano mo i-assess yung output ng iba't ibang estudyante mo sa klase? That's how we differentiate content, process, and product. And according to students, readiness. Of course, it refers to the readiness of a given skill, concept, or way of thinking. Diba? Remember Thorndike's law of readiness? When the child is ready to learn, he will learn the skill. But if he's not, then the product would be frustrating. The result would be frustrating. And also, it's according to the interests and attitudes of your students and their learning profile and needs. Ano ba yung learning needs nila? Kaya nga napaka-importante that teachers' first role in the classroom is to know thy learners. Kilalanin mo sino-sino ang iyong mga learners, ano ang kailangan nila, ano ang interest nila, ano ang kanilang mga prior knowledge about the topics. In order for you to plan and become successful in using differentiated instruction. So here is an example of a differentiated strategy or activity that can be done. So it is called tiered instruction, which provides teachers with the means of assigning different tasks within the same lesson or unit. Okay, like for example, in terms of readiness of the students, okay, you give one group a topic, or your topic is on verb, and you give one group, the more advanced group, you assign them to make a 2 to 3 paragraph essay about their experience on Christmas using different tenses of the verb. And the other one, the average group, is tasked to give different kinds or different types of verbs with examples in a sentence form, while the struggling group is given a task on verbs wherein they will give the different examples of the verbs used and when are these verbs or the correct usage of these verbs. So we have an essay, you have sentences, and you have different examples from the 3 groups in your class. So that is how a tiered instruction is being done. So you are referring, or your topic is verb, but each of the groups will have different outputs. Each of the groups will have different levels of difficulty according to their readiness, interest, and learning profile. So what can be tiered? So we can tier the content, process, and product. So it could be the assignments that we give. It could be the activities that we give, the homeworks, the centers, or yung ating rotating learning stations na ating ginagamit. It could be the experiments, the materials, the assignments, and the writing prompts that we give to our students. Okay, so here are the steps in planning a tiered activity. So step 1, identify the key concepts or skills. Or what should students know or understand to be able to do? Step 2, think about the students or the use of assessment to determine their level of readiness, their interest, and their learning profiles. Step 3, create an activity for on-level learners that is interesting, challenging, and causes students to use the key skills to understand the major idea or concepts. Pag sinabi nating on-level, ito yung mga nasa average na mga estudyante. So, adjust the activity accordingly. Remember, you may not need to adjust the activity if you are differentiating by interest or by learning profile. However, if you are differentiating by readiness, you will need to adjust for struggling learners and highly able learners. So, that's the difference now. Another example is by the use of flexible grouping. So it's an opportunity for students to work with a variety of students through the whole group or in any different forms of small groups. This is somewhat similar to the collaborative teaching strategies that we use or collaborative grouping that we use. So the key to flexible grouping is in the name, flexible. Nothing is permanent. So students have an opportunity to be in different groups depending on the activities. So you can initially use the whole group for instruction and then divide group for practice or enrichment and then use, okay, this is not used as a permanent arrangement. Rather, use groups for one activity a day or a week. So, flexible grouping is the cornerstone of successful differentiated instruction. Iba-iba ang grupo nila per activity where they can learn from each other. So how does flexible grouping benefit the students? So it gives students and teachers a voice in work arrangements. So it also allows students to work with a variety of peers and it keeps students from being pegged as advanced or struggling. Ito na yung sinasabi ko kanina na they should not know the grouping, especially if you're using advanced or struggling group because that could cause superiority or inferiority complexes. Group members can be determined in terms of readiness, interests, their reading level, their skill levels, their background knowledge, and their social skills. Diba? Or pwede mo namang random you group your students randomly and then give them different activities and different outputs. Yun lang medyo matrabaho pagdating sa atin ng mga teachers. Why? Because we have to read, we have to assess well their outputs. But eventually, masasanay tayo pag lagi ganito ang ating ginagamit. Because it gives us that sense of variation. It gives our students that sense of differentiating each output na hindi lahat, di ba, kung sino yung naunang natapos, kung sino yung maganda, yun ang magsiset ng standard. Wherein, with differentiated instruction, we give each of the groups the chance to have a high score or to be assessed fairly by the teacher based on the rubrics given with those different activities. So here are the principles of a differentiated classroom. So time use is flexible in response to the student needs, 'di ba? So nakadepende 'yan kung ano yung kailangan ng ating mga estudyante. So a variety of management strategies such as learning centers, interest centers, learning bodies is used to help target instruction to student needs. So they may also have groups, a core group wherein they can learn from each other. So clearly establish individual and group criteria and provide guidance towards success. So that's the role of the teacher. And then students are also assessed in a variety of ways to demonstrate their own thought and growth. Okay? So, which is healthy para sa ating mga estudyante. So, hindi lang natin sila ina-assess sa iisang exam. Diba? And when they are not prepared, of course, the scores are low. And then, we also, we can brand them as, mahina yan, which is wrong. Okay, another example is the use of exit cards or aka tickets out the door. So these are used to gather information on student readiness, levels, interest, and or learning profiles. So they can be used as quick assessments to see if the students are getting it. Okay, like for example, I usually use exit cards when with the face-to-face noon, I give my students index cards at the beginning of the class. And then in those index cards, I usually write or make let them make the KWL chart. The KWL is, diba, what is already known. They have to write what they have already known about the topic. And then during the discussion, they have to write what is already known. So that's the KWL, K. Then the W is what I want to learn. So they are going to write what they wanted to learn. And then before the end of our class and before they go out of our classroom, so they have to answer the third column, which is what have they learned. Okay, so that's the KWL chart. So that is the form of exit card that I used in my class. So with online, pwede naman nating gamitin na itong exit cards with the chat box that we have in Google Meet or in Zoom, diba? So we can post questions and then we let them answer one by one by chatting their answers on the chat box. So that could be done. Okay, that could be done. So the teacher hands out index card to students at the end of an instructional sequence or class period. So the teacher asks the students to respond to a predetermined prompt on their index cards and then turn them in as they leave the classroom or transition to another subject. So the teacher reviews the student responses and separate the cards into instructional groups based on the preset criteria. Actually, their answers in the exit cards can also be used for differentiated activities, for the tiered activities that we give them. Okay, this is an example, like for example, in group 1, students who are struggling with a concept or skill are grouped as 1, And then for group 2, students with some understanding of the concept or skill. So ito na yung example na we can make use of the results of exit cards to group our students. And for group 3, students who understand the concept or skill. Okay, this is an example of an exit card. So like for example, explain the difference between a simile and a metaphor. And then for the other group, happy as a clam is an example of a simile or metaphor. So this is how we're going to do or to tier our activities using the exit cards. Okay, tic-tac-toe. So this is similar to tic-tac-toe na game. Okay, so the students can choose whether they choose the activities on the boxes vertically, horizontally, or diagonally. So they can complete a character analysis for the main character of their story, and then complete a character report card and name and draw a person who is like one of the characters from the book. So this activity can be used in English or in literature, in the teaching of English and literature. Okay? Of course, we can also teach them. We can also have our lessons and present it in a more effective manner using the graphic organizers. So, since you are education students, kilala nyo na itong si fishbone diagram. So, this can be used to present cause and effect, the planning organizers, and of course, the Venn diagram. Ang walang kamatayang Venn diagram to present differences and similarities of two variables. Or kung tatlo, pwede rin namang dagdagan ng isa pang bilog. So, the side that meets at the center, okay, dito natin ilalagay yung kanilang similarities, and then outside that could be the differences for each of the variable. And of course, we have the mind mapping. So instead of writing words, the students can draw. The students can doodle, di ba? Mas gustong-gusto yan ng mga estudyante, yung nagdo-drawing, nagko-connect-connect, kung ano yung mga pwede nilang i-connect doon sa topic na ating pinipresent. So, they can also do this. So, in that way, they are, or we are giving them the chance to be creative, to think outside the box, and to think of the possibilities or the things that could be connected on the topic that we are discussing. So, when we start, examine your philosophy about the individual student needs. Okay? So, we have to start small. Huwag masyadong biglain. So, we really have to plan it out. Grow slowly, but grow. So, this is the best advice, di ba? Envision how an activity will look like. Step back and reflect. Talk with your students early and often. Continue to empower your students and continue to be analytical. Remember, kahit ilang taon na po tayong nagtuturo, we still have to adjust. We still have to learn. So, the number of years, the years of experience is not a guarantee that we have been an effective teacher. So it is very important that we talk to our students, we reflect, and we continue to be analytical, and we accept the fact that we have to grow, we have to improve. So in my differentiated classroom, everyone will feel welcomed. Mutual respect will be non-negotiable. Students will feel physical, mental, and emotionally safe. There will be a pervasive expectation of growth. I will teach for success. A new sort of fairness will be evident and accepted. We will collaborate for mutual growth and success. So we are for difference, for respecting difference, for valuing difference, until the difference no longer makes a difference. So thank you for today. I hope you've learned something. I hope I have shared and met your expectations for today's sharing with the different strategies that we can use with our new normal education. Thank you and God bless us all.
For the information of everyone, if you have queries po o mga tanong na gusto nyo pong ma-address, you can write it down sa ating chat box para po ay ma-acknowledge ng ating mga webinar in charge. Of course, our resource speaker will be very accommodating to responding all of your questions. Ayan, thank you so much po, Ma'am Farah. I hope that you guys have absorbed all the necessary inputs na talaga namang will serve as your weapon in the upcoming teaching internship. Thank you so much po, Ma'am Farala. At this moment, let
Thank
us
you.
award the Certificate of Appreciation our highly esteemed resource speaker.
Ramon Magsaysay Memorial College's College of Teacher Education Office, Pioneer Avenue, General Santos City. Certificate of Appreciation is awarded to Ellen Joy M. Farala, MAED, for rendering her time, effort, and passion in sharing her expertise as resource speaker for the webinar with the theme Modifying Teaching Strategies for Virtual Learners, Fitting Education in New Normal. Given this 11th day of February 2022 at Ramon Magsaysay Memorial Colleges, General Santos City, Philippines. Signed by the Dean of College of Teacher Education, Annalisa T. Amada, EDD.
Ayan, maraming salamat po sa lahat ng mga nakinood ngayong umagang ito. Thank you so much for your active participation and of course to our esteemed speaker. Ayan, siguradong ready na ang lahat for their journey in the upcoming teaching internship. Ready na ba ang lahat? So at this time to express her acknowledgement, we have here Ma'am Mary Feb Rolete for her closing verses.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. Good day and magandang RMMC. So I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our well-respected and knowledgeable resource speaker, Dr. Ellen Joy Farala. We are very grateful for taking your time to share your in-depth knowledge and expertise about teaching strategies for virtual learners, creating education in new normal. I would also like to give my thanks and appreciation to our college dean, Dr. Annalisa Yamada, and to my fellow field study instructors, thank you so much for making this webinar successful. Indeed, that was a very timely and relevant topic for us educators. I know that the transition from traditional classroom to online learning has made the learning experience completely different for students and teachers. But today, we have gained important things on how those effective teaching strategies can be applied to the new normal system of education. There's a quotation that says, things may never go back to normal, but learning must continue. Once again, thank you so much for attending and have a blessed day.
Maraming salamat po sa lahat ng mga nakilahok, especially to our future educators from RMMC Gensan and RMMC Marbel Incorporated. Palagi ho nating tatandaan that we as teachers are the ones who make difference and not the classroom. Let's continue to be productive. Have a great day.